Global demand for livestock products is expected to double by 2050. Mainly due to improvement in the worldwide standard of living. For this reason, agriculture and food security featured prominently at the UN Climate Change Conference COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh last month, with governments working on stepping up action to cut greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change in the agriculture sector. But raising animals for food uses extraordinary amounts of water, causes deforestation and contributes heavily to greenhouse gas emissions, making the practice of farming animals severely damaging to the climate and overall planetary health. And although an animal welfare lobby group did not succeed in getting the COP to adopt a decision to ban factory farming, the lobby group is hopeful that COP28 will move the conversation forward.
The agriculture industry is vulnerable to climate change. When droughts and floods hit, farmers suffer some of the worst impacts. Yet it is a sector that also contributes to the global warming problem, especially the livestock subsector, which accounts for at least 17% of the emissions that are human-made. Meat consumption is fast growing around the world as populations grow. But to feed this growing population, farming is becoming more intensive, industrial, and unfriendly to the environment. It is estimated that nearly 100 billion animals are farmed around the world to meet the global demand for animal protein. And now an animal welfare lobby group wants factory farm models reconsidered because feeding these billions of animals is leaving a large carbon footprint.
The largest factory farming hotspots in the world are Brazil, the US, China, and Europe. And these by far account for the largest amount of factory farms. Now we have around 80 billion land-based animals, the majority of which are in these cruel and intensive factory farms. So we also see that the emissions in 1 year from chicken alone is equivalent to having 22 million cars on the road. For each 10 kilograms of pork that's produced, we see 5 trees felled.
To put it into context, to produce 1 million kilos of chicken on large scale, 1.4 million trees have to be cleared to make room for feed production. Armed with this data, the World Animal Protection went to COP27 to lobby the delegates to consider other forms of protein, not only for the benefit of the animals in the farms, but also for the benefit of the environment. And although no such decision was taken, the G20, which hosts all the 4 largest factory farms in the world, pledged to cut its emissions, but made no commitments on livestock-related carbon impacts.
And not a vegan organisation. What we are advocating for is an end to dangerous factory farming. Most of the world actually does derive most of its protein sourced from plants, not from animals. So what we are advocating for is for sustainable production methods, very much like what 60% of the animal products in Africa come from small and medium scale. This is actually a blueprint or a model for the world.
While Europe consumes at least 23 kilos of meat per person per year, the consumption of meat in Africa has largely remained low, taking away the need for intensive factory farms. This small-scale production is what the lobby says the world needs to adopt, and that what is needed is finance to support small-scale meat producers to produce sustainably. The evidence of the impacts of climate change on food security is growing worldwide and more prominently in developing countries, and it is hoped that COP28 will take tougher decisions to not only climate-proof food production, but also completely transition the entire food system out of the destructive practices in use now. Zainab Wandati, NTV.